Now connecting you to the College Sports Connection podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the College Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, AJ the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
Welcome back, AJ. We had quite a bit of a break here. We didn't do much recording the last couple of weeks with me taking my trip to Vegas, some computer issues, but I think now we're back on track, gearing up for college football, some Major League Baseball, and some other stuff.
Yeah, it seems like everything's starting to fall back into place now, and it's funny because, you were just on vacation, and I leave for vacation in 2 weeks. So we're getting all this stuff out of the way.
That's going to be a good time for sure. I'm very glad that we are getting our sports back. Slow and steady, I think, is the key, but it's happening. So I think everybody out there is very thankful.
Mm-hmm. We're starting to see some sense of normalcy now.
Yes, well, exactly. And I think that's the key is, it's starting to almost feel like a summer now. I mean, we've got baseball. The players all reported today at their home stadiums. And in 22 days, we'll have opening day.
Yeah. Now, with that, are they playing at their home stadiums or are they playing out in Arizona?
So they are all, from what I understood, the teams are all reporting back to their home stadiums for spring training. And then they are playing at their home stadiums with no fans.
Okay.
One of the teams
I knew they were reporting to their home stadium, so I wasn't sure if that was just going to be like a spring training thing, and then they're going to head back out west, or what?
Right. So, yeah, it looks like they're going to be playing everything at home, which I thought was really cool. One of the teams, I believe it's Oakland Athletics, is doing something where the fans can buy a cardboard cutout of themselves, like they pay, whatever. And then if that cardboard cutout gets hit by a foul ball, they'll mail you the foul ball or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that. And I believe it was like EPL Soccer did something similar to that too.
Yeah. Well, because they had somebody paid for a Kobe one, or maybe it was the team who paid for the Kobe one because he was a big soccer fan. So I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, I did see that. That would be cool, though. That's a great way to make a few bucks here and there too.
Yeah, make up for some of that fan revenue, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, man, I am super pumped baseball back. For those who don't know, I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan, terribly optimistic Cincinnati Reds fan. And AJ here is a Cleveland Indians fan. And they've had a little more success in recent history than the Reds have.
Just a little bit. We've obviously Minnesota starting to play well in the division. But here we go. I shared this with you a couple of days, about last week or so. It's the Indians' 60-game schedule. They're going to play 40 games in the division. So that's the White Sox, Tigers, Royals, Twins. And they're going to play 20 games against the NL Central. So they've got 20 games between the Cubs, Reds, Brewers, Pirates, and Cardinals.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
I wish we could go to these games because obviously Chicago's not far for me. Cincy's not far for me. I've always wanted to go to PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Milwaukee's a 5-hour drive. And St. Louis is 6 or 7, but I have family out there, so I can make that into a long weekend. But
yeah, absolutely.
And the schedule works out well too because in the sense the Tribe don't have to travel very far. I mean, they've traveled to Minnesota. It's probably the furthest they have to travel.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, looking at that schedule, you've got the Tribe have to travel to Minnesota. St. Louis might be just as long,
maybe
because they're flying, right? I mean, I would imagine they would fly.
Yeah, but that's if they play. That's if they play at St. Louis too.
True. Well, and that's what I expect. I expect that for those because they're playing 20 games against the NL Central, so they're going to have
20 games divided by 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to have 4 games against the Reds, 4 games against each divisional opponent. I would imagine they're just going to do a 4-game series at those stadiums, and no back and forth just to eliminate anything that could be happening.
Yeah, so that schedule did look interesting because it will be fun to play some of those teams. So you don't get to usually play.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I like that they're doing the whole geographic thing. That's kind of
Hmm.
cool. Makes it easier for them for obviously travel purposes, saves them a little bit of cash. But it also, as fans, I think it'll be interesting to see if they do any blackout restrictions with like MLB at bat. I can if I'm MLB at bat and I'm that subscription service, I think you throw the fans a bone and you have zero blackout games because it's not like the fans can go anyway. There's no going to these games.
Right,
It's
and
there's no option.
speaking of the blackout too, I was watching it with the Indy 500 because the Indy 500 there's a blackout on it in Indianapolis while the race is going on, so you
No
can't watch it
way.
on regular TV. You have to watch it that night. And so even
Mm.
with Indy 500 being pushed back, and they're only
Hmm.
going to be allowing X amount of fans into the race, there's still going to be a blackout on it in Indy and the surrounding area.
Wow.
So NBC WTHR down there carries it. So there's always a blackout. And so people, if you go to the race, you usually record it on your DVR, then you go home and watch it. But if you're
Hmm.
at home during the race, you usually listen to it on the radio.
Huh.
So yeah, it's never made any sense. But
No, not at all. I mean, it's because not everybody can afford those tickets, and you could be a lifelong fan and not get the chance to see them play just because the blackout restrictions or whatever. And I think I get it for some reasons if the stadium isn't full, but like, come on, throw people a bone.
side note, spend the money and go to the 500 sometime. It's fantastic.
Okay, I will keep
I've
that in
been
mind.
twice. I
Okay.
went to the 99th and 100th, and it was an absolute blast.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. That's something that's, I guess, on my sports bucket list. I think I'm pretty sure every sports fan ever has a sports bucket list, but that's definitely
Hmm.
one of them that is on my bucket list.
Yeah, it's an absolute blast. Now, granted, it's hot as could be at
Hmm.
the end of May. Now it's going to be in August. So it's going to be even hotter, and
Right.
so there's no shade around the speedway. The only shade's under the grandstands, and that's
Yeah.
just as hot because there's no airflow. Uh,
Right.
but to get on back on track here, who are the Reds playing? What's their schedule look like?
So the Reds obviously have all of their divisional opponents, and then we play everybody in your division. So it's going to
Oh,
be, yeah, because and that's the nice thing is both of our teams are in the Central Division for our respective leagues. So we're
mm-hmm.
going to have, I mean, we play our schedules are the same, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
So
keeps it easier to it's easier to keep track of.
I'm excited for I'm excited for the Reds Indians series. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe Trevor Bauer will get a chance to start against the Indians. I think that'll be exciting to see.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't follow Trevor Bauer on Twitter, please do. Just it's worth it. Just
Mm-hmm.
the commentary that comes from him. He's so intelligent when it comes to baseball, but he's also so snappy, and I think that's probably my favorite thing.
Yeah, it's not only that, but it's also he knows the business. He knows
Hmm.
the sport or the business of baseball, and so
Yeah.
he understands that he's not scared. He's not scared to challenge anybody on that.
No. And it's so funny. It was Kurt Schilling that quit Twitter basically because of him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Trevor Bauer, sure, he's had some ups and downs in his career, but the dude knows exactly what he's talking about. Fan of him or not, it's worth following on Twitter. I
Yep.
highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
So you had talked to me about wanting to discuss some quarterback battles going on this
Yeah.
fall. So I'll let you go
Yeah.
ahead and kind of kick that off for us.
With college football guys reporting here last week? Maybe 2 weeks
Yeah, I
ago.
think it was this last week.
I don't have a sense of time anymore. I don't know when it is, but
They
there are a lot
reported
of
at some point.
so some point in the last 2 weeks with these guys reporting. There's going to be a lot of battles coming up here, and there's a lot of notable quarterback battles in
Mhm.
college football this year. And let's start with Alabama with
Yep.
Tua leaving, going to the NFL. The candidates right now are Mac Jones, which I think he'll probably get it, having him started the end of the year last year when Tua went out.
Hmm.
But of course, on this list, Tua's brother was on here, but he's transferred to Maryland, so he's no longer
Was
in the
it
Big.
Maryland or was it? Yeah, it was Maryland,
Because
wasn't it?
that was Maryland because his offensive coordinator went to Maryland from
That's right.
Alabama.
Yep.
Yep. So Alabama right now, the candidates right now are Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Paul Tyson. Mac Jones is a redshirt junior. Bryce Young is a freshman, and Paul Tyson is a redshirt freshman as well. I
Yep.
highly doubt Alabama starts a freshman at quarterback. going into this year, and Mac Jones has the experience, having played the last 3 or 4 games of the regular season last year, including the bowl game.
Well,
So
exactly. And for me, I think that's the key right here is one, Mac Jones already has the experience, after he
mhm.
took over in the LSU, or was it the LSU game? No, it was
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. Yeah. So after he took over in the Mississippi State game, I mean, he's got the experience. He had a great bowl game, against Michigan, played really, really well against that Michigan secondary. And then I think the other thing is because they didn't have spring ball, all of these battles, they're not going to want to take chances to say, oh, well, he has time to grow. No, it's whoever comes out of camp as the clear front runner is going to win it. So I think you're right. I think Mac Jones does take it. That being said, I do think Bryce Young is the second string guy.
Mhm.
I think Bryce Young just looks so good as a passer, and he's going to compete for the job. But it's Mac Jones' job to lose, I think, at this point.
I think so too. And honestly, Nick Saban, if something were to happen to Mac Jones week 1 or week 2 and him not play well, he will not hesitate to throw Young in there. Because
Yep.
week 3 they played Georgia.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's a
so
big one.
he's going to want a clear-cut, solid, bona fide quarterback by week 3. And if Jones isn't that guy, and then he will have no hesitation throwing Young in there and starting against Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, like I said, I do believe it's Mac Jones' job to lose, but Mac Jones better be ready to play because you've got Young chomping at the bit.
He'll be competing, yes.
Yeah.
The next one here, LSU. Joey Burrow goes number 1 overall in the draft this year, so it's a wide open competition here. Miles Brennan is a redshirt junior, Peter Parrish, redshirt freshman, Max Johnson, a freshman, and TJ Finley, a freshman.
Lot of young guys.
2 true freshmen, 1 redshirt, and then a redshirt junior.
Yep. I think so. For me, I look at this, something that you have to keep in mind if you're a college football fan and if you pay any semblance of attention to LSU. Miles Brennan lost this job, or lost the competition for this job, to Joe Burrow a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he sat behind a now Heisman Trophy winner, a national championship winner. He's learned a lot from Joe Burrow. I think that experience of just being in that system is going to give him the edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't see a lot of these guys so far. Obviously down this list, we can definitely talk about some of these other schools, but down this list, I just don't really see these SEC guys trusting a freshman without the spring camp. We get a lot of these early enrollees who benefit greatly from spring camp. They didn't have spring camp this year. So you literally are getting them straight out of high school.
Mm-hmm. And, I think Brennan does – I think he obviously is a perennial favorite right now, but Johnson will push him to week 1. And even, they might not have a bona fide quarterback after week 1 either. I don't know what their schedule looks like right now. I haven't looked at it. But, some of these teams who are taking off that spring or do not have spring ball, obviously their first game or two are usually cakewalks. So they'll treat that as their spring game. And they'll get both of these guys in there. They'll battle it out. They'll test it out. They'll see how they are under their game management, their game pressure, things like that. And I think after week 2 or week 3, most of these programs will have their starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too is you talked about Max Johnson giving him a push. I could absolutely see, the redshirt freshman Parrish. I could really see him kind of pushing a little bit because he's that dual threat. He's also been in the system. Sure, Miles Brennan's been in it a little bit longer, but it's not like Parrish hasn't been involved in the system, hasn't been at practice. No, Parrish understands the system at least somewhat. So I think that with him being a dual threat, you throw a completely different look at these opposing defenses, and hopefully for LSU, they get a relatively easy early slate. I don't want to say like an FCS school, yeah, but I think that you get something like a Sun Belt team, you get an AAC team, whatever. I think give these guys the chance to audition in game time too. I think as the defending champions, you've got your defense you can rely on. Your offense will take time to figure out. You don't play Alabama till later in the season.
Absolutely. Move on here. This is another interesting one here. Oklahoma. With Jalen Hurts going out, they don't have a transfer coming in this year. So they've gone from Baker to Kyler to Jalen to a wide open field right now. You got Tanner Mordecai. He's a redshirt
Mordecai,
sophomore.
yeah, I think.
Yeah, it looks like that. Sounds good.
Mordecai.
Mordecai.
Yeah, Tanner Mordecai.
Tanner Mordecai. He's a redshirt sophomore. They got Spencer Rattler, who's a redshirt freshman, and then
Mhm.
Chandler Morris, who's a freshman also. This
Right.
one's interesting because this one is wide open.
Yeah, there's nobody in the system really who
No.
who knows what's up.
No. I mean, and now granted, we all know Lincoln Riley is great when it comes to quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I really think that this is Rattler's job to
Mhm.
win right now because he may be younger. Yes, he's a redshirt freshman, but I think with his skill set, it's comparable to a Jalen Hurts style quarterback. Meaning he is a dual threat and a little Kyler Murray too. Kyler is more his game's hard to explain because it just varied week to week. But Jalen had all the tools. I think he was an all-around better quarterback, and that's kind of where I think Spencer Rattler is here at this point, as well as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Spencer was pretty highly recruited. Class of 2019?
Yep, he was the number one quarterback of the class of 2019.
Yeah, so like everybody kind of got to see him, out there, and everybody knew his name, and he played a little bit in the Peach Bowl as well. And yeah, I think you're right. I think this is his team now. Essentially, he's going to be the face, the under center, leading this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. That one would be really interesting to watch. We move on here to Oregon with Justin Herbert moving out of the draft, being taken this past draft by the LA Chargers.
Yep.
We've got Jay Butterfield as a freshman, Kale Miller, who's a freshman, redshirt freshman, and Robbie Ashford, who's a freshman. And then we've also got Tyler Stroh, who's a redshirt sophomore. So one thing I have noticed with all of these the candidates, they're all freshmen.
Yeah.
They are.
There's no contingency plan.
No, there really isn't. I mean, I know the recruiting classes here, like the elite 11s, going on right now, and but a lot of these programs are getting young, very young quarterbacks in there, and the struggle they're going to have is again no spring ball, so these guys aren't going to see any live action until week one, essentially, and so I think that's going to put the teams who are going to be relying on a freshman or a sophomore quarterback, the teams who are relying on them, they're going to struggle early on.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I do think it's Tyler Show's job to lose right now because he is the only one coming into Oregon with any kind of playing experience. He did play a little bit last season. I think he had 3 touchdowns. But yeah, Kale Millen and Jay Butterfield are definitely going to be competitive, but I do think that it's Tyler's show to lose just because, again, he's the only one with experience in that system.
Exactly. And this is a position and a team that can't afford to wait till week 2 or 3 to find a quarterback because they start the year off with North Dakota State and then Ohio State.
Yeah, no, it's a quick transition from NDSU. I think, are they still the reigning 1AA champions?
I believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got a perennial power in NDSU, and then you have a semifinalist in Ohio State from last year. So
that game is supposed to be at Oregon, but that just depends on what the governor does out there because they're shutting down. Their governor said no mass crowds. So who knows what's going to happen there?
That's going to be nuts.
Yeah. So this one really intrigues me. I was talking to a buddy about this earlier. Penn State. Okay.
Penn State's going to be fun.
Sean Clifford was a starter last year. He's a redshirt junior. Then you had Taquan Robertson, who's a freshman. Michael Johnson Jr., who's a redshirt freshman. Then you have the redshirt sophomore, Will Levis.
Okay.
I truly, truly think Will Levis wins this job.
Okay.
Yes, Sean Clifford started most of last year. Was good, but he wasn't consistent. Will Levis came in and was pretty solid every time he came in and played. He came in and played against Ohio State for a few plays, and every play was positive.
Yeah, so I remember that. That was this last fall, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. See, and that's the thing is like Penn State's. There's a lot of interesting things going on over there. I think that Penn State is kind of in a little bit of a rebuild this year.
Mm-hmm.
So the one position they need to shore up quickly is the quarterback. And so, I think that Penn State has a lot of potential talent to figure
Mm-hmm.
this out, but they got to figure this out quickly if they want to have a shot at the Big Ten championship. And I think right now,
Absolutely.
I think you look at it as a fan of the Big Ten, and I know we talk about Big Ten a lot on here, but I think as a fan of the Big Ten, you have Ohio State is the clear number one in the conference, at least, until somebody can dethrone them. But I think you consistently have Wisconsin and Penn State right up there with them. They're just a pinch underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. And here Penn State, week 2 they play Virginia Tech, so that game could be a real test for whoever that starter is to determine their future for the rest of the year. If they come out of that game not playing well, they may see some of the pine. So
they're going to rotate early and often, I think, until they figure out who's got the hot hand.
yeah. Here's the next one here. It's kind of interesting too. Tennessee, the Volunteers, Brian Maurer, who's a sophomore, TJ Stroud, who's a redshirt sophomore, Harrison Bailey, who's a freshman, and Kasim Hill, who's a transfer redshirt. And you also have Jarrett Guadalantaro.
I'm going to say that sounds right. So
Guarantano. Guarantano. Yep, that sounds good to me.
Works
he was
for
a
me.
starter last year, and so he's supposed to be the guy. But there's some guys, the transfer quarterback's pretty solid from Kasim Hill.
Yeah.
He came from Maryland.
Yep.
And so he's gonna have a battle. And if you haven't noticed too, a lot of these quarterback battles are in the SEC right now.
Well, and that's something that I've noticed that's been really interesting. You've got a lot of the SEC ones. The 3 big conferences that you see these battles in, you've got the Pac-12. I think we've got Washington and Oregon. And you've got the Big Ten. You're going to have Penn State, Wisconsin. And we got to talk about Wisconsin. We got to talk about Michigan as well. And then you've got the SEC with their plethora of QB battles. So it's going to be a really interesting for the Power 5 conferences getting new quarterbacks situated.
It really is. And a lot of those guys, like we have mentioned, those first 2 games are usually cakewalks. They've got to figure it out quickly.
Yeah, because a lot of them aren't cakewalks this time around.
No, not at all. And so it should be really interesting to see what happens there. But I think Tennessee goes with Jarrett week 1 because as their starter, he won their bowl game against IU last year. But he'll get a run from Kasim Hill, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be a really, really good battle over there. But I think you're right. It's his 5th year. He knows the system better than anybody. They gotta get the season going quickly, and they got to build off that momentum since with the bowl game win over Indiana, and I think that's their first winning season since 2016. So they're doing something right. They've got to continue to build on that momentum, and having a little bit of consistency at the quarterback spot is going to be good for them.
Absolutely. Here, speaking of Wisconsin, they've got 2 options. They have Jack Cohn and Graham Mertz.
Yep.
Jack Cohn, the senior, Graham Mertz, redshirt freshman. Jack was the quarterback last year. Obviously lost in the Big Ten championship, went to the Rose Bowl. Did they win that Rose Bowl?
This year? I don't think they did.
I don't think they did either.
They have a history of not winning the Rose Bowl.
Right, they've done a good job of losing that game. But the big thing is,
yeah, they lost 28-27 to Oregon.
Oregon, that's what it was. But the thing that really is going to impact this quarterback decision is Jonathan Taylor leaving. He was the 70% of their offense, probably.
Oh, easily.
So, I think Mertz can run the ball. He's a little more dual threat action than what Jack Cohn is. Jack Cohen's a pocket passer. He's going to throw it down the field. That's all he can do. And so I think that might be where Wisconsin's going to need to buff up their offense. Is going to need, because obviously there's a once in a lifetime talent in Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. So going to have to balance that out with a good running back, a quarterback who can move out of the pocket too. I think that's what Mertz brings, and I think he's a little more accurate than Cohen as well.
Right. No, and I think that's the other thing too is, yeah, Cohen, a lot of people kind of labeled Cohen as a quote unquote game manager. I mean, he
Yeah.
had 18, 19 touchdowns last year, something like that. And for me, they relied so much on Jonathan Taylor, and it really showed. I mean, they won 10 games last year, with a great running game. But I think that, Cohen, he's going to play early, but I think that it's his job to definitely lose. And I think he'll lose it at some point. I don't think he keeps it. I think maybe week 1 and 2. Well, I mean, they can't even really say they got to get going, or they can have a lull in week 1. They've got Indiana week 1, start kicking off Big Ten play right away. Follow that up with Southern Illinois the week after, and then Appalachian State. And then, so the first 4 weeks, they have 2 Big Ten games. They play at Michigan the end of September. They've got 2 should be gimme games in the middle, but they need to have it figured out, ready to go on September 4th, because they've got Indiana coming to town, and they got to be ready for that game. Indiana's going to be coming in hot, ready to play some football after they're heading to a bowl game last year. So
Absolutely. And, speaking of IU, we can talk about them. They're going to have a quarterback decision also because Peyton Ramsey transferred out.
yes, he did, didn't he?
So, that's another one where it's going to be interesting down there in Bloomington. We can get into that here in a little bit. But another one, too, another big one that a lot of people forgot about is Georgia. Jake Fromm declared for the draft. Justin Fields is going into his second year at Ohio State. What's Georgia going to do? I believe they have a Wake Forest. Their quarterback transferred in. Jamie Newman. He had about 3,400 yards last year and 32 touchdowns.
That sounds right, yeah.
So I think right now it's either going to be him or Carson Beck.
See, I kind of like Carson Beck, if I'm being honest here. I think that gives them something a little bit different. But I don't know. Like, it's so difficult to kind of really say, because there's just so many variables with what's going on for this.
And these are
next
two
season.
guys, who have, obviously Wake Forest is in the ACC, and then you have a freshman coming in. There's not a whole lot of SEC style film on these guys, so we don't really know what they're going to get out of them when they come in. And again, this is one of those situations where spring ball really having spring ball really does hurt.
Well, and that's why I think that these quarterback competitions are so much more interesting than they have been in years past, especially with these guys who have been enrolling a little bit early. I think that the lack of spring ball is really, really devastating for these players.
Absolutely. Another one too. Let's get into your Wolverines. Let's talk about those guys. I believe McCaffrey will get that one because he was supposed to be the Lord and Savior when he came into the program.
Yep.
Then Shea Patterson was supposed to be the Lord and Savior, and he wasn't worth a damn. So is it McCaffrey's time to shine?
So I really like Dylan McCaffrey. I really, really like Dylan McCaffrey. I am absolutely intrigued by Joe Milton. This dude, one, he's big, and he's got phenomenal arm strength. His big thing that he's sitting on is very little experience. That being said, you look at Michigan football, they've got to figure it out. Again, in camp, they're traveling to Washington week 1, and then they've got a peculiar Ball State team coming in week 2. Right. I don't ever, having been a fan of both a Big Ten team in Michigan and then a student and a fan of a MAC team in Toledo, you can never overlook MAC programs if you're a Big Ten school. You can never overlook MAC programs if you're any school, but especially if you're Big Ten. I mean, these are guys you played with in high school, guys you played against in high school, guys you've known for a long time who are just attending a different program. So they're all in your backyard playing the same game you are. So I think, everybody wants to say, oh, well, they make it through Washington, they'll coast to 3-0 before Wisconsin. They make it through Washington, I could see a sleeper against Ball State or against Arkansas State. I do think Joe Milton, I would love to see him get it, but I don't think that he will. I do believe it will be Dylan McCaffrey just because he has a little bit more experience. And like you said, it's his time to shine.
Yeah. And, speaking of, not sleeping on Ball State went to Notre Dame and damn near beat him 2 years ago.
Yes, they did.
Well, it wasn't for a couple I think it was like a last 30-second interception.
Yeah.
That's really what kind of caused that one. Another Big Ten one that I'm interested in too is Iowa, with Nate Stanley he was there forever. It seemed like,
Yep.
Forever.
It felt like he was there 6 years almost.
At least he went to Minnesota, but now you got Spencer Petras and Alex Padula,
Yep.
who are 1 and 2 here, and this is going to be an interesting one also because Iowa they like a quarterback who can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They've been that way ever since Ferentz took over 20 years ago. All of their quarterbacks have been throw first. And so, I'm reading some articles on it right here, and the first thing it says it's going to be weird not seeing Nate Stanley under center for the Hawkeyes. He's been the QB1 for the past few seasons, so it's time to say goodbye. And so, and Spencer Petras was a former Oregon State commit, but flipped to Iowa in December of 2017. So he's been there a hot minute too.
Yeah.
And so
that one's going to be a fun one to watch, honestly, for
I
Iowa.
think so too. And I think Spencer Petras gets it because he's been there for a while.
Yeah, he just knows the system. Yeah. And I think, Kirk Ferentz, the head coach there, like, he knows what these guys are capable of. I think that's the other thing too, is these head coaches know what their quote unquote veterans, even their red shirts, what their veterans are capable of. A lot of these true freshmen, like you said earlier, they're not going to want to start them because there's just so much unknown. Can they handle this pressure? I don't even know if they can handle a practice yet. So there's just a lot of that unknown. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see more often than not the veteran win the job. But I think that we're going to see a couple battles here where it's going to come. There's going to be some rotating in the first couple weeks, just figuring out who do we go with.
Absolutely. Moving on here, also we talked about IU a little bit ago. We'll talk about IU's quarterback situation here with Paxton Ramsey. He transferred out. So then they got 2 guys here who have both played a considerable amount of time. It's Michael Penix Jr. and Jack Tuttle. Michael Penix Jr. is a redshirt sophomore, and Jack Tuttle's a redshirt sophomore also. He transferred into the program from Utah. So they've got 2 options there, both a quarterback, and they've both played a significant amount of time. Michael Penix out of Tampa. This one's going to be interesting too, I think.
Yeah, losing Ramsey hurts IU a lot. I do believe that they'll bounce back, but Ramsey was such a critical part of that offense that helped get them to a bowl game. I mean, we talked about him on the pod last year in the middle of the season and how good he was with the football, even especially for a school like IU, who's not historically known for their football team. He really came in and kind of helped change the culture of IU football, which I think we're going to see something completely different. And I'm hoping that Indiana doesn't fall off the radar. I do believe that they are going to lose week 1 to Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's going to be solely because of quarterback play. I think there's a lot of other problem areas with Indiana. I really, really, for any of my IU fans, I really hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. I would love nothing more than to see Indiana pull that upset in week 1.
It's that so funny. Said, like I have a lot of friends who are IU alums and boosters. Mm-hmm. I've been down to IU. I've lost track of how many times. And it's so weird because the student section and the fans leave at halftime, usually of every game.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's interesting, too, because down there in Bloomington, you can go out of the stadium at halftime and come back in. So if you want to go to your car, have a couple drinks, and come back in, you can do that. Most people just don't come back in. And so, and Peyton Ramsey did lose that starting job towards the end of last year to Michael Penix Jr. because now he picked Northwestern, so he stayed in the conference. But
Yeah.
Penix did finish out the year and didn't play too bad, but coming in, younger quarterback, only having played half the season, especially at a program that needs all the practice and all they can get, really,
Right.
they're gonna be hurting there a little bit.
No, for sure. I think Penix, he brings a lot to that offense. And like you said, with him taking that job last year, like they obviously saw something in him that they trust. So that'll be really interesting to see. Like I said, I don't believe Indiana will win that game, but I don't think it's going to be because of the quarterback play. I think there's some security there with knowing what they have in Penix, but they're going to lose because of a multitude of other reasons.
Yeah, there's fix one thing at a time with IU.
Well, exactly, and that's got to be the attitude of the coaches there. They can't go in and change everything. You have to. All right, let's address this. All right, now let's move on to this. There is a QB battle. When we were talking about this earlier, I've been really excited to talk about, and that's with UCF.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw anything on theirs, but there are some big names people need to know: Mackenzie Milton, Dylan Gabriel, and Daryl Mack Jr.
Mm-hmm.
This one's going to be tough because Milton and Gabriel both have a lot of experience in that offense. That being said, Daryl Mack does too. I think McKenzie, depending on his health and if he can bounce back, gets the job back. But Dylan Gabriel helped him go almost undefeated again. Like that wasn't a fluke. These guys,
Absolutely.
I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's I think where a lot of you look at Alabama, for example, they're in that same category where with Mac Jones, he's played, he knows the offense.
Mm-hmm.
IU, Penix, he's played, he knows the offense. So there's gonna be a lot of guys who have seen time, but they're still not gonna be solidified starting quarterback week 1 or week 2.
No, absolutely not. And that's the key takeaway here is there's a lot of names. I mean, we could speculate all day, and I think we have a pretty good idea who we think will be starting, but there's a lot of guys who have the potential to start. It's going to come down to how they perform in camp, because right now you don't have spring ball, you solely have fall camp, and even then that's not enough.
No, especially when you're a high-powered D1 school.
Well, exactly. Yeah, like any of these D1 programs, even like the UCFs and the other smaller group of 5 schools, you're playing Division 1 football. You got to be ready to go for, 13 weeks. You got to just know what you're doing.
Without a doubt. And there's one also I just thought of, Miami. Didn't King from Houston transfer there?
Did he? I think he did. Yeah.
He did, yeah. And Tate Martell's there, but he'll never play.
No.
So
yeah.
I don't know what his thing is.
Derek King.
Derek King, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that he's probably going to take that job if we're being really honest. But I think it'll be Perry will win that job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think but I don't know. I think it's because you've got Derek King, from Houston, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just I don't know. N'Kosi Perry started 19 games in the last 2 seasons. And then Tate Martell, who transferred, like you said. And then they've got freshman Peyton Matocha, I think is his name.
Sounds right.
But the thought is that Perry could potentially win that starting job. But King looks good from everything that I've read, everything I've seen. King looks like he should win that job, but Perry's chomping at the bit, nipping at his heels, ready to take that job.
Absolutely. So that's all the quarterback battles I had.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting. If you guys out there listening have any quarterback battles you want us to discuss in the next couple of weeks, let us know. Other positional battles, wide receivers, starting running backs, let us know. We'd love to break those down and take a look at those for you.
Absolutely.
So we do have some news about college football, since I think that's probably going to be our focus this week. But we do have some news in regards to college football. You sent it to me earlier about Mississippi State canceling tailgates.
Tailgating, yeah. Tailgating will not happen this year at Mississippi State. Not only them, but I've heard Notre Dame as well. They're not allowing on-campus tailgating, which essentially where Notre Dame is, there's no place outside of campus to tailgate.
No, not anywhere convenient anyway.
No, not at all. And I've tailgated there countless times, not being far from there.
Right.
But yeah, let's see here. I saw this on Twitter. It's from a Mississippi State alum right here. After careful considerations regarding the growing concerns of COVID-19, we've made the difficult decision to cancel football tailgates for this fall. This is not a decision we have taken lightly and is incredibly important. And it cuts off there. But this was on the Alumni Association page of Mississippi State. So I think that'll be a growing trend here in the next coming months. Because when you go to big schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, where there's 100,000 people in the stands, there's 152,000 outside the stadium just tailgating for the day. So they're going to do the best they can do with keeping people away from each other.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, it makes sense. I get what they're trying to do. And as a fan, I can appreciate that they're trying to take that safety into consideration. So I understand it, but I think, Notre Dame doing it, now Mississippi State, those are two big schools. I can only imagine, for us, like a Ball State and Toledo is just going to say, yeah, we're not playing in front of fans. Granted, MAC schools typically don't get a lot of fans out anyway, so it's not going to hurt too much. But there's still something with home field advantage. There's even 15,000 fans in the stands. That's 15,000 people supporting the home team. That's still not easy to play against as an away opponent.
No, not at all.
And so I don't know. I think we're going to see that pop up more and more and more as we go on. The other thing I've seen, and I shared something about this on, I want to say Facebook the other day, but how some of the SEC fans were kind of complaining about not wanting to wear a mask if they get to go to games and stuff. And I just kind of laugh because as a former marching band guy, like, we would wear these thick wool uniforms in 95, 100-degree weather, like head to toe, full wool uniforms. So I just kind of laughed at that. It's like, look, if they're requiring you to wear a mask, wear a mask. Like, that's, I'm not going to say I think it's right. I'm not going to say I think it's wrong. But if a school is requiring you to do something so that you can go and enjoy watching your team, just do it. It's not that hard.
Exactly. So speaking of Mac, we have a guest coming on here soon.
We do have a special guest coming on here soon for our July segment of Year of Maction. And AJ, this is your school.
Yes, very excited about this one. I took a drive through campus last weekend. Actually, I was on my way back from Indianapolis, and I drove through campus just to check it out. And actually, mainly I wanted to stop at my favorite bakery and get something because it's really good.
Which is that bakery? Tell us.
What's that?
What bakery is that? Please tell us.
It's called Concannon's.
Okay.
It's been in Muncie since like the 50s, I believe, and there's incredible cookies, donuts, you name it, they've got. It's incredible. Haven't had in a few years. Figured I'd make a detour off of Highway 69. It's only 13 miles out of my way. No big deal. But drove through campus, checked it out. They're tearing down my old dorm. That was kind of sad to see.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, well, Follett, RIP. But we do have Ball State's golf coach on.
Yes.
And so Ball State has a new indoor golf facility who I'm really excited to talk to him about as well.
Okay. That'll be fun. Yeah, and for those who listening, his name is Mike Fleck. We are super pumped to have him on, like AJ said. I made AJ the promise that we would try to get our two schools in the first quarter of episodes. And AJ, this is our third Maction episode, 12 teams. I kept my promise.
Absolutely. We got him, and I know he's very excited to speak with us. I'm excited to talk to him about Ball State, Muncie, because obviously my heart is there. And, loved my time in Muncie. My 4 years were incredible. but I knew some of the guys on the golf team while I was there, so he was with them. So we can talk about those guys a little bit and some of the success they've had in the MAC over the past couple of years. And I'm also really interested too because golf is such an individualized sport. How you go about recruiting golfers?
Yeah,
I'm really really interested to get into that because it's not like I'm sure you can send some type of tape out, I guess, but it's not like basketball, football, baseball where they look at your tape and they evaluate you that way. Because, like I said, golf is so individualized. So the whole recruiting process, I'm very excited to talk to them about.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's probably a much different recruiting process than what other people would kind of expect. Personally, I think, it's obviously you can look at stats and numbers and stuff all day, but I think because it's so individualized, you can definitely say, okay, based off of these numbers, this kid is probably doing this. We can work with this. I think if I'm recruiting as a golf coach, I look at their improvement through their time in high school.
Sure.
And
you look at their handicap, you look at their, all those things. You probably speak to the country club they belong to and their high school coach, and there's probably a ton that goes into it that we don't even know about that we wouldn't think about. And so I'm excited to talk about those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super pumped. It's going to be a good time. Great to have him on. Really, really learn a little bit more about the collegiate golf scene. Speaking of golf, I'm going to go ahead and announce this anyway because I'm going to be doing some follow up this week. The Ladies PGA Tour is hosting a tournament here in the city of Toledo in August, and AJ and I are applying for credentials, and I'll be doing some follow-up work on that this week. So we are excited for that. If we get those credentials, we will definitely be doing some live coverage from there, doing some stuff with the pod on the Facebook page, on the Twitter page, doing some live stuff for you guys. So hopefully we get that. That would be really, really exciting to bring another perspective to another professional sport to you guys that we don't often see. I think the ladies golf is so swept under the rug in terms of visibility. So I think that'll be really cool to kind of kick that off and hopefully get invited to go do some coverage for that.
That'd be a lot of fun. It'd be a great opportunity for us to expand to another we can say demographic. Yeah. Demographic.
Absolutely.
Something that doesn't get covered a whole lot.
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting that yes. So, but hey, man, I don't really have much else. I think this, nice, short and sweet this week.
Absolutely.
So cool, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys get the chance to check out the Beard Brothers Fantasy Football Podcast. We are looking at doing a few other things down the road here shortly with them. They are our beard cousins, as we call them, and we're excited to continue to support them as they support us with the Four Beardsmen Sports Network. So make sure you guys check them out on Twitter. It's Beard Brothers FF. You can follow me on Twitter at Sheer Dumb Luck. You can also follow AJ at Roughing55. Make sure you guys continue to check us out on Twitter at College Sport Pod. We also now have a Facebook page, the College Sports Connection Podcast Facebook page. We're up to almost 150 followers already, so that's very thankful to you guys for being faithful to us and helping us out on that front. Looking to maybe do some giveaways, do some raffles, maybe some contests during this college football season. I think we have a lot in the pipeline to present to you guys, to bring to the forefront and give you guys the opportunity to have a voice in and be a little bit more active as our fans. So we're really excited for sports coming back and bringing some new stuff in for you. So
absolutely,
yeah.
just kind of like you said, we got a lot of things working here. A lot of things brewing, as we could say, and those things will come to more fruition once we have some sports and things to talk about. We've got NBA coming up here soon, baseball coming up, college football is not far off the horizon, NFL, those guys are getting ready to start workouts and whatnot. So here the next month or so, we'll be able to pick some things up and get some more involvement from you guys, and should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so cool, man. AJ, did you have anything else to add?
I am all set, man. Hey, you guys have a happy and safe 4th of July.
Yeah, happy safe 4th of July, and we will see you next week.